Remember back to when the Luftwaffe was still bombing Britain and we were hammering them with our Spitfires? I made a video called The Best Bakugan Fight, and people were asking basically for a part 2. This is part 2, but this is just mostly just going to be Dan's most iconic fights. The first fight is technically actually two different fights. Dan and Apollinaire versus Spectra and Drago. Now basically what happens is, Dan gets cocky and tries to challenge Spectra to a battle in the place where he beat Masquerade. Dan ends up losing by 500 points and his Bakugan going to Spectra. And then eventually he gets clinically depressed. And then eventually Apollinaire like, hey yo, what's up bruv, you want to get Drago back?
I have come!
He's like, yes. And then they challenge Spectra again to find out that he's been torturing Drago with these things called X cards or X dimension cards, something like that. Whenever he activates them, they basically torture Drago and boost his power level to a point where his body can't handle it and he's like screaming out for pain and crying and stuff. Very, very sad. He gets fed up to the point where he actually turns Apollinaire into a trident, runs up Drago and stabs him in the core and then wins the battle. The second fight is Max's Drago versus Max's Helios. So after the brawlers are trying to climb up that massive fucking tower thing to try and save all the bronze statues that Hydron has in his collection, which just have to be all the main character Bakugan from the first start, then I'm getting transported back into ball form and having been sent down the massive gap between the floor and that thing, and then eventually Spectre at the bottom just like, hey Dan and Drago, wanna fight again? They're like, oh for God's sake, and they start fighting again, because that's literally how every single fight is. Like they're trying to do something, then Spectre and or Dan just arrive just like, hey, no, fight now, which is pretty much the plot of New Destroyer. About 5 minutes into the fight, Spectre decides to take out this box of Bakugan, and they're a bunch of Robo Bakugan, and they all attach to Helios to create Max's Helios, and he can also activate all 6 different attributes at the same time in one ability. And then eventually after a little while of, you know, even using like the elemental core ability, I think is what they're called, where they basically use the power of the perfect core, they still can't hurt him. So eventually Dan decides, you know what, fuck it, it's time to bring out our robot Bakugan to make this epic thing, which is absolutely amazing. It's basically Bakugan Mecha, but better, and before Mechtagon. And then also towards the end, Dan and Spectre have a laser gauntlet fight like Star Wars, but better because it's not Star Wars. And also, can we just acknowledge it where Spectre literally has a voice crack, and it's fucking funny.
Time we used it to crush them all!
So the next fight is actually Dan and Drago versus Barodius and Darak, the final battle. And basically what happens is, Dan, Drago, and Barodius and the other thing, Purple Dragon guy, they all get sent to bloody this other dimension where they can't hurt anyone, because apparently anytime they fight, they can basically cause the whole universe to explode. The fight ensues because whoever wins the fight gets the power of the Sacred Orb. Now, if you already watched Bakugan, you should know that the main character obviously wins. That's actually for most anime. Halfway through the fight, Drago gets hit so hard that he becomes unconscious and starts fighting on pure instinct. Basically fighting unconsciously. And then eventually, back on the other planet, Nethia, after this whole battle, Lionholt uses his power not to nuke the Nethia, but instead to heal everyone, which is basically more than any single Battlefield 5 medic has ever done in history. This whole fight is very fucking brutal and also very, very fun to watch. After Dan climbs on top of Drago, shouts into his ear about 50 times, they win the fight and get the power of the Sacred Orb. However, Barodius, being the salty little skill issue shithead he is, decides, no, I don't like this losing game. He gets Darak to jump onto the Sacred Orb, and then he gets absorbed into the Sacred Orb.
It just keeps coming!
Which is not the outcome they're expecting, but the outcome they deserve. Overall, this fight was pretty good. So after watching literally every single character in Bakugan get killed, Dan and the brawlers are getting sent to the Doom Dimension for them to go out of the Doom Dimension and then time travel back into the past and then going to kill Mechtavius Destroyer again, you'd be expecting one hell of a fight. And oh boy did this fight deliver. It was fucking insane. They had like Mechtagon, Bakugan fusing together to shoot at Mechtavius Destroyer. Crazy shit, Dragonor Destroyer showed up again and literally became Super Saiyan by summoning every single Bakugan's energy and using the power of friendship to send Mechtavius Destroyer to the Mega Gay Zone. This fight was one hell of a fight because literally the stakes were high. Every single 6 to 12-year-old was watching and probably ready with their saving money to go and buy out some Bakugan because Bakugan was literally about to end. It was one hell of a bloody episode to watch if you were a 6 to 12-year-old back in 2012, which I realise now was 10 years ago. So the final fight that I think is the best fight of any Dan battle in Bakugan was definitely Dan versus Helios, the final battle. And this battle was bloody insane because for the millionth of time, Spectra challenged Dan and Drago to another fight to become who wants to be the best Bakugan. And then eventually, you know, they ensue their fighting business, and then, you know, nearly nuking New Destroyer, you know, multiple times over, causing so many bloody explosions that the US Air Force would get wet of looking at how many explosions and weapons that they're using. And also, when 6 things go up in the air, they shoot outwards and drop back on Drago. The United States Army should be watching this and studying, holy shit, look at all these creative weapons they have. Obviously, we see these characters constantly fighting, going through evolutions, constantly fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting again, and eventually finally to be able to see it coming to an end eventually, you know, with some sort of actual, like, ending for those two fighting would be pretty good. And also, just the fight itself was absolutely fucking brutal. But this is a children's show where it should be lasers shooting at each other, not fucking, like, WWE moves into each other, like, fucking throwing each other onto the floor and beating the shit out of each other. And eventually, once the fight ended, you know, we see Spectra actually, you know, become a good guy now, and then, you know, eventually he uses his Zucconator to fucking blow a hole in that big whole battleship, which is fucking insane. Anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. Click here if you want to see Bakugan Fights Part 1, and then click here if you want to watch some other shit, I don't know. Anyways, then goodbye.